breaking news today.
Please subscribe and then check notification box to get all breaking news alerts.
Hours after 26 Christian churchgoers in Texas were killed by a deranged gunman who stormed their Sunday worship service, former President Barack Obama saw an opportunity to take advantage of the situation and President Donald Trump's absence. While the POTUS is in Asia, Obama went behind his back to do the unthinkable to all of these victims and their families. When Trump found out about it, he didn't hold back on his predecessor and made him pay for trying to step in as president where he didn't belong. Democrats are notorious for never letting a crisis go to waste, and what happened less than 24 hours ago in Sutherland Springs, Texas is no exception. Moments after 26 people were brutally murdered by Devin Patrick Kelley, Obama almost seemed giddy at the opportunity to use it to his advantage and tried to do just that. With fake sympathy for the families suffering the loss of their loved ones and the community in mourning, Obama made a disturbing statement to stab President Trump in the back using these victims' suffering in a sickening way. USA News Flash reports. Perhaps the lowest thing that someone can do in times of crisis is use a shooting incident in which people lost their lives to their political advantage against another person. That was the case with former President Barack Obama, who used the shooting incident that took place this Sunday morning during a church service in Texas to call for fewer guns. Obama started out saying, "We grieve with all the families in Sutherland Springs harmed by this act of hatred, and we'll stand with the survivors as they recover," before explaining how the American people should ask God for the wisdom to ask what concrete steps we can take to reduce the violence and weaponry in our midst. The former president that has only recently stepped back inside the political arena of the United States didn't go into specifics on how and what these steps should look like. And there is no doubt that Obama's reaction to the Sunday's massacre was far more political than President Trump, who initially attempted to gather the people together and united them in these hard times. He said, "In dark times, and these are dark times, such as these, Americans do what they do best. They pull together," before finally concluding, "We join hands, we lock arms, and through the tears and through the sadness, we stand strong. All Americans pray to God to help the wounded and the families of the victims." Devoid of real emotion, Obama couldn't save his gun control push for just a few days and let the initial shock and heartbreak over this tragedy somewhat subside. He also made this statement without knowing the facts, and that's that no amount of gun control could have stopped this massacre from happening since Kelley didn't legally own the gun he used anyway. As a former military member who was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, he was not allowed to own a weapon but did anyway. That level of gun control didn't stop him from his crime, and only a good guy with a gun, who legally owns his, was able to stop him. It takes a good darned individual to stop a bad one, and had a hero not been armed, as Obama is pushing for, then there would have been more than 26 victims. President Trump understands the real issue in these massacres, and it's not the gun, it's the killer. He put his predecessor in his place with the announcement he made after the attack. President Trump said Monday that a mass shooting at a Texas church that left 26 dead was not a gun situation, declaring that the problem was the shooter's mental health, The Hill reported. "I think that mental health is a problem here," Trump said during a news conference in Tokyo in response to a question about the massacre in Sutherland Springs, Texas. "This was based on preliminary reports, a very deranged individual. A lot of problems over a long period of time." The president pointed out what Obama refused to say after every act of evil like this, when he said, "We have a lot of mental health problems in our country, as do other countries, but this isn't a gun situation. This is a mental health problem at the highest level. It's a very sad event." He first reacted to the speech earlier Monday while speaking at the U.S. Embassy in Japan, calling the violent outburst an act of evil, The Hill added. Later at the news conference, Trump declared that it's a little bit soon to discuss the issue of guns and suggested that more people would have been killed if another armed person had not opened fire on Kelley. "Fortunately, somebody else had a gun that was shooting in the opposite direction," he said. "Otherwise, it wouldn't have been as bad as it was, It would have been much worse. It's disgusting that Obama continues to step in where he doesn't belong, and using this horrific event to push his agenda within hours of it happening is insulting to all the dead victims and a community in mourning. It's refreshing to have a commander-in-chief in office who isn't afraid to call the killer out for exactly who he is and what caused him to commit this atrocious crime.